Hello everyone, I'm Travis Chingo here with Tom Quinn. In our previous video, we discussed the nature of genetic expression and how we can control our DNA through what's called epigenetics. So this video, Tom, we want to talk about what goes into that and how we can control that. So
Okay.
let's dive into that.
Okay, what we really need to deal with then is genetic controllers. Since we are driven by our genetics from the DNA code, and that genetics is under our control, it behooves us to consider what other systems within our body actually have an interplay with genetics. When we eat food, what systems are going to interface with our genetics in order to be able to generate the expression that we wish to achieve. And I don't think you can go anywhere without starting at circadian rhythm. When you take a look at what is it that controls our genetics, you have to take a look at the master clock. The master clock is the suprachiasmatic nucleus. The suprachiasmatic nucleus resides in the hypothalamus, right behind the eyes, which allows it to get a great deal of input from the environment about light and dark. There are SNC, SCN, suprachiasmatic nucleus, sensory cells inside retinas, etc. There's messages delivered in addition to the differences in light and dark. So it's a very important feature for us. And it sets clocks in motion. When that mechanism is determining that it's time for light to change to dark, it begins sending other messages within us that release melatonin, which begins to lower brain waves so we can get into sleep patterns, which then begin systems of repair and recovery that only take place at night while we're asleep and are actually timed repairs and recoveries. So it sets in motion all of the hormonal and biological functions of a human being. That's pretty strong control. So when you look at what is it that's going to influence our genetics most as far as systems are concerned, you have to start with suprachiasmatic nucleus and master controller being circadian rhythm. And that's light and dark, that's 24-hour biochemistry, that's things happening over and over again so that systems can continue to go on and you can continue to be healthy. I don't think it should be any surprise that if you interrupt that process, that it causes a disruption biochemically downstream.
Sure.
If, for example, I've got certain functions of my body that are supposed to take place at certain times of day, and I stop the clocking mechanism so that that time of day is hours behind, or minutes behind, or some time behind when it should have been, then that particular function, maybe it's hormonal, or some other system function that's supposed to takes place at a different time, then other downstream processes that were depending on that to take place at the proper time, they become dysregulated too, and they don't take place when they're supposed to. Well, we're a magnificently created organism, so we tend to have in ourselves the ability to adapt to that. If I was to start walking from here to San Francisco, I'd never be able to notice jet lag. There wouldn't be any biological process I'd have to accommodate. But you put me on an airplane and take me there, and all of a sudden my body clocks are gone. Things aren't happening right. It takes me 2 weeks to get them back in sync. So, but I can bring them back in sync. So I have biological processes that are entrainable. It's called entrainable. And to entrain them to the proper time frame. This is one of the biological processes I have. So I can adapt, but I can also mess it up over time so that it can't readapt. For example, if I go ahead and eat food within 3 hours of going to bed, I elevate the insulin levels in my blood to take care of that food, to get it to go where it's supposed to go. That insulin floods my system and completely envelops my cells. the receptor on those cells that is waiting for growth hormone to come and tell it to repair and rebuild from the day's activity is the same receptor that insulin occupies. So if I've eaten within 3 hours of going to bed, I drench my body in insulin. When growth hormone comes through that night, it doesn't find a receptor to occupy.
And keeps going.
It keeps on going. It gets broken down in the biological processes and excreted from the system as waste. I've missed the opportunity to regenerate my cells the way that they needed to be. Don't be surprised if you wake up feeling like you were hit by a train or like you got a hangover because you ate cherries or cherry pie before you went to bed. You may be familiar with that. I mean, there aren't too many of us out there who haven't violated that particular edict.
Sure.
We'll eat before going to bed and can't believe how drug out we feel in the morning. There's been nothing happen. You've got another day to go before you can recover from the last 24 hours. You can't do that often without paying a price biochemically. Your adrenal glands will start to hypofunction, and you will become sick in ways that you couldn't imagine. Flu, colds, everything you get as it comes through the area because you have no defense, because your adrenal glands are on the knees because they were trying their best to supplant a system which was being drug out over time. They were trying to hold you up while you were refusing to repair and recover. And it's very common. It's lifestyle. It's habit.
Actually, there's commercials now. They're calling the condition non-24.
Yeah, I saw that. They got a term for it.
Of course, there's a pharmaceutical.
Of course,
that'll
take you right through it. You don't have to worry about health. Yeah, sure, they've got a pharmaceutical for it. They've created a condition. Now they're going to make sure you don't have the symptoms, and you can pay for that. And that's what this system does. So at any rate, that's part of ignoring the demands of my DNA circadian clock. I can't do it without paying the price. And I do it to myself all the time in the modern American society that we live in. So either by diet or by lifestyle, either by all the sugar I eat or all the high carbohydrates or drinking alcohol or doing it all just before I go to bed or doing it late at night, partying until 3 a.m. I mean, you can't do that without paying a price because you are disobeying the genetic code. The DNA was asking for something else, and you have ignored it, and you're going to pay a price for it given time. So it's important to understand that that's a master clock regulator that has to be on your side every 24 hours, and you can mess that up frequently enough to cause your own disease. And disease will become certain when you do that because the circadian clock has that much biofeedback between it and other organ systems and other genetic controllers that if it's out of sync, everything else below it starts to get the message and it all starts to try to re-entrain to another time. And so you really mess things up big time when you mess up circadian clock. And that's a really strong genetic controller. Another one is the intestinal tract, and people tend not to think about that because I put food in my mouth based on taste. I don't even think about the electrical nature of what I'm putting into myself. Right. Based on taste, I put that in there, and by the way, I'm a busy man, so it's got to be quick. And it's got to be convenient. I can't be putting anything in me I got to take a lot of time to make or a lot of time to clean up. So if I can buy it, hand them $1 for it, get it, throw it, and then the bag goes in the can, and it satisfies the sweet and salt taste, then I'm good, right? So that's what I'm doing to myself. And if that's my lifestyle, my mentality, am I thinking about my intestinal tract? It's the furthest thing from my mind. Right. And don't bring it up because it's distasteful. And yet 70 to 80% of your immune system lives in that area. And not only that, but it's your nutrient processing center. Without a clean intestinal tract, I don't care what you put in your mouth, it doesn't end up where it belongs. That's where all the absorption of nutrients after they've been processed takes place. So if I'm not adhering to the bodily requirements for a clean intestinal tract, I've dysregulated everything from my circadian clock because it understands when that's taking place and it tries to re-entrain things. It's a master regulator. So it messes that up. It messes up all my upstream stuff because the nutrients aren't getting through. It tends to impact along the inside of it with non-digested material, and that intends to erode the inside of that membrane, that intestinal membrane, which opens it up, which then allows poison to pour through into the bloodstream and keeps me constantly toxic. If I don't have a clean intestinal tract, there's no way to have good health. It's that simple. The circadian clock demands it. The intestinal tract demands it. You got to pay attention to both of those, or you don't stand a prayer. I don't care how good you eat. I don't care how much you try to work out. You're going to have a system that fails you. You're not going to be able to exercise because eventually you will lose the robust energy necessary in your mitochondria to provide you that support. You won't be able to do it. So everything will begin to deteriorate and go away in a catabolic sense. You'll have no anabolic thoughts.
Well, that's all the time we have for now. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.